CFO Playbook by CEO East Africa Magazine in association with ACCA Uganda and Deloitte.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CFO Playbook, a production of the CEO East Africa Magazine, where we delve into the journey to financial leadership. We're looking at the finance profession, the changing landscape, the trends, the challenges, the opportunities, as told by the people who make it happen, the CFOs. My name is Muhereza Kyamutetera, but you can always call me Cham because I know you always have issues with the name Kyamutetera. I'm the executive editor of the CEO East Africa Magazine. And I'm happy this show takes place at the time we are holding the Uganda CFO Awards 2024, now in its 8th edition. The awards are brought to you by Deloitte Uganda and ACCA Uganda in partnership with Uganda Airlines, MTN Uganda. We have NCBA Bank, we have Bank of Uganda, of course the CEO East Africa Magazine, who is proud to tell the stories. We have Osera Technologies and Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation, UPPC. And of course the theme of the awards is we're looking at pushing the boundaries and exploring the growth mindset. We will get to talk about the theme and the awards a little bit later. With me on the show, I don't know to call this a show. Oh, by the way, I must say it's also my first show I'm holding publicly. So today is a milestone. And with me is I won't say my friend, but I know we've always, our paths have crossed very often. He's the CFO of Post Bank Uganda, and he's among the team that has played the big role in transforming the bank, and you agree with me, the bank has transformed. And of course, he has very many titles, but for now, I'll focus on the fact that last year in the CFO Awards, he was the winner of the Leadership Award, but he was also the first runner-up of the overall award, which is the CFO of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Peter Ssenyange. Please. Now, let's go a little bit into the first segment of the show. And we've been hearing, and of course, we've read in many places about the evolving role of the CFOs. The CFO is no longer that guy who used to refuse to sign our vouchers of 10 years ago. And actually, there used to be a joke that he's one of the most hated guys in the organization. Nowadays, the CFO has changed. That role has changed. You take us through a little bit about that from your own perspective. Yeah. How is the role of the CFO changing?
Cham, thanks for having me, and I thank SCCA for having me for the show today. The CFO role is, first of all, let me just break the illusion. Yes, the CFO still says no to many things because the baseline role of the CFO has not changed. The fundamental role of the CFO, part of it is financial control generally, ensures the survival of the organization. So a few no's get said once in a while. But that said, the role has now evolved from a transactional one to very much into a value-creating strategic role. So essentially, you are an advisor to the CEO. Your job, in short terms, your job is to make sure whoever sits in the CEO role succeeds. And what does the CEO do? The CEO determines the strategic direction of the organization and also executes against that. So the role of the CFO, therefore, has changed to mirror that. So you're a chief advisor to the CEO and how the organization creates value. So you're the chief custodian of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Of course, nowadays, and of course, they say we live in a global village. And what happens previously, it never used to be, but I think in the era of the internet and what happens in one part of the world happens in the other. Yeah. Long time ago, when I was still a young man, whenever I would see these explanations, people trying to blame things happening very far away, I would think people are trying to find excuses. But with all that is happening around the world, you take us through what are some of the challenges the typical CFO faces nowadays?
Well, it's a host of them. Mm-hmm. I'll break them down between external and internal. Mm-hmm. So you have let's start with the external ones. Mm-hmm. That you can, in my current job, Post Bank, as an example, when the Russian-Ukraine war started, we thought it was a European war. It doesn't affect us in any way. Mm-hmm. Now I'm talking about as a bank. And suddenly, one of our vendors shows up. Actually, a host of our banks are some of the biggest users of paper. And one of the vendors all turned up and said the price of paper has gone up because Ukraine makes newsprint and it can no longer come. Now you have the external, the global, what's happening on the global stage actually affects your organization in one way or the other. Now the challenge for the CFO is how far away is your scan to be able to prepare your organization quicker. Now there are the others, regulators, stakeholders. Most likely, the board stakeholders and the CEO stakeholders are your stakeholders, but they're a bit far away. So how do you prepare your finance team and yourself to respond to that? The internal ones are the usual ones. Do you have the right team to execute against your mandate? Secondly, the culture of the organization, which, by the way, as much as you're not trained as a CFO to do that, but the culture of the organization affects a lot of your performance within the role and for someone to deliver against that. So the challenges are both external and internal. But also the CFO role is not just a technical role, it's a very political role as well. Now, as we know, politics can be nasty, it can be very good. I think for an upcoming CFO or current CFO, the issue is not to, you have to be able to recognize it and not ignore it. Now, I'm not advising you to play it, but the point is you have to put yourself in such a position to deliver results no matter what.
Okay. Very interesting. And like they always say, never waste a good crisis. I'm sure, in my other world, I'm a marketing person, and I always say it is good for an organization to every once, like in 5 years, to have a crisis. Because then, just when people are about to forget your role, then a crisis happens, and then you come back again and actually show you guys we are still around and we are very important in this organization.
And very valuable, yeah.
Of course, I'm sure amidst all these challenges, there is always opportunities where CEOs have to rise to the fore and showcase, so for the CEO, for the finance professionals out there, amidst all these challenges that are happening, I'm sure in there, and even picking from your own examples, you've seen some opportunities for driving innovation and growth. Yeah. What are some of these insights that you could share with the professionals out there in terms of where they can be able to identify opportunities and be able to showcase the importance of the profession?
I'll start with where you latched on. A good crisis. Yeah. A good crisis is usually the best part for the CFO to showcase innovation and growth. Now, in our case, the previous case, for me, the rise in stationery helped me start a journey on not necessarily cost reduction, but cost optimization in that space. And I can tell you, I'm excited about the numbers I see in that direction. But also the CFO role, remember, works mainly to help create and maintain value in an organization. Now, to do that, you can't do that without innovating. And you can't do that without growing. Now, growing yourself as a person, but even growing the leadership team you're around. And this boils down into how you communicate strategically. It also boils down in how you prepare your team internally. It also boils down in how you influence the board from where you sit. So, to put it plainly, you're setting the tone for innovation and growth. And that's a huge role for the CFO. Yeah.
So you're saying, in other words, where, usually when some changes hit, some people will whine and become grumpy. You're saying when challenges arise, that should be an opportunity for you to think and, and look at where you can make yourself more relevant.
Exactly. Okay. So you're starting out with, first of all, why are we where we are? What are the things we could have done better or we've learned from here? And then what are the changes? Now, most people will go through 1 and 2. Now, the other one is what do we do from here going forward? It might require very hard decisions that require a bit of boldness. And that's where the CFO really comes in. So you act as someone who validates sometimes your own observations, but also the CEO's observations. But also you act as a very strong execution tool for the CEO's hand into the job.
Okay, interesting. And by the time you become CFO, I'm sure you need to have put in the numbers in terms of years. And like they say, you can't skip the process. You have to let the process take its toll on you. And which means that you must have been around for over a decade in the business. So looking back on how the profession has changed, the changing landscape, and also maybe looking a little bit in terms of the future, how has the role of the CFO, evolved, and how does that then, impact the importance of the role?
At the start of my career, the CFO role had a bit of number crunching, a huge bit of number crunching. You couldn't be a very good professional if you weren't really good at number crunching. That has not changed. Right now, the biggest value we bring to boards is advisory. A lot of advisory. You want to show them what's around the corner before they get around the corner. Also, you want to keep them honest. So the role has evolved, and it has evolved so much that when we are before the board, a good CFO will act like a news anchor. A news anchor does not necessarily, you watch that news brief for a very short time, but you have to be able to get the content, you have to get the takeaway, and then the what next. Now, a good CFO would present that to their board, would present that to their CEO, would present that to their exco team that way. So the role has changed a lot. Now, I want to also point out, previously, you were only required to have a lot of financial acumen. Now you're required to have financial acumen, business acumen, value acumen, and a lot of personal management. So those are the three trends that I can say have changed about the role.
Interesting. I think it's at the number crunching that I dropped out. I was so bad at mathematics, but interestingly, now that I'm a business reporter, I get to interact with a lot of these numbers, and I'm just realizing how not very hard they are. Maybe if I had a chance now, I could always go back and.
And if I can interject there, the numbers. I was also terrible at maths, by the way. Still am. Okay. But what actually accounting is about? Accounting is just the language of business. Okay. Everything you do even in your own practice, it has a number at the end because you do things in currency. Now all accountants do is they take that language and communicate it back to you in a language that you can understand.
Actually, there's somebody who said in reputation management that life in general is like finance. You do good things, they put on your credit. They do bad things, they put on the debit of your reputation. So you have to make sure you try and balance. So very quickly, because I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing things and all this nice stuff, but they don't know the person and who's saying this. So just quickly take us through who you are as a person, and how would you want people to know you out there?
Well, I'm Peter Ssenyange. I'm the current CFO of Post Bank. I've been at Post Bank for 4 years. And before that, I was at United Bank for Africa, where I was also CFO. So I've been a CFO since 2016. I'm a fellow of the ACCA. I'm a member of the ICPAU. I hold a master's degree from Heriot-Watt University. I also have an undergrad degree. So I've been in this profession since 2007. And it's been a rough ride, but also a very, should I say, impactful ride as well. I spent 9 years in, I think, what I would call my bedrock. My formation was mainly, I spent 9 years in Stanbic Bank in the finance team, where I rose from an accountant trainee right to a senior finance manager. I call those my bedrock years because they molded me in how I run things today. That particular environment had a very good way to mold a person. And I think my earlier experiences were very clear. In my earlier years, I was told clearly that the financial acumen is not the biggest thing that the bank needed. The bank required a CFO with business acumen. So I learned things that typically you're not taught in school. So my journey with Post Bank has been an exciting one in the last 4 years, and I'm happy to be part of the team that's transforming the bank.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Okay, very interesting. I see you've really had a chance to work with some of the best brands in the finance or in the banking business, and like you said, your first years were really like the bedrock, and of course I'm sure they must have shaped you into the professional that you are right now. And in some of the conversations I've been discussing with the other CFOs, there's the issue of teamwork. It always comes up. And of course, at the end of the day, I believe every team is as good as its manager or its captain. Can you give us a little bit of insights into what you consider as your own leadership style? What are some of the key values that you think are important for your team members? And how have these helped you to build a successful team?
I think I'll just change the statement you made earlier. Mm-hmm. The team makes the leader.
Okay.
Yeah, the team makes the leader. Mm-hmm. The demands on the CFO role these days are so big that you can't effectively deliver without a very good team. Mm-hmm. So it's very clear. It's very important that you set down your values for the team very clearly and ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So what's my leadership style? In simple terms, I'm a very brutal executor, and also a very astute planner. So my leadership style, then that drives out my leadership style. So I'm very collaborative. I plan a lot, and I also in that sense, the values that really epitomize the teams I lead are as follows. We don't sacrifice deliverables for anything. We also get the tasks done. We also have to enjoy what we do. That means we don't leave any of our finance. When one part of the finance team is not winning, the other part is not winning. The last one for me is very important and very personal. Finance is a very pressurized environment. So you want to make sure that when that young person leaves that role, they are much better than they found it. Personally, and also for the team. That means I encourage a lot of my teammates to grow. I'm very proud that at the moment, one of my teammates has gone on to become a CFO, and to replace her, we hired from inside the team. And that's all been done in 4 years. Okay. So those are largely my values.
Okay, interesting. You're one of the few finance people I've had mention the word enjoy. Yeah. I don't know whether you mean enjoying the work or enjoyments. But either way, it's fine. It's good to go.
No, think about it this way. We spend nearly half our lives at work. Okay. So you want your teammates to be doing what they do, and they must like it. Okay. So that's.
Yeah, but even the enjoyments are also there somewhere in the
part
corner.
Of it, all of it.
That's very important. Okay, interesting. And I'm one of those people who has closely covered the story of Post Bank over the last 4 years, and I must say a lot has happened. Things are moving fast and furious. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe now this is the time when you get to tell us a little bit about Post Bank. What's happening there? What should people know about the bank, and what are some of the great things or the milestones that you have achieved together with your team over the time you've been at the bank?
All right. So Post Bank is a Ugandan bank. It's an indigenous bank. Post Bank's purpose is to Post Bank started in way back around 2008, and it has changed a lot in the last 4 years. What have we achieved during that period? When we came in, the bank had its obvious challenges. That's been public. It's public information. But I think we've made a lot of progress in 4 aspects. The first one is the bank's human capital capability. The second one is its social capital, what you know about it. You've been covering it. The third is its intellectual capital, with what you see, what we've done with Wendy, the mobile. So we've created a business model where we have a traditional bank running alongside with a fintech. Then, last but not least, is its human capital capability. I think I mentioned that earlier. Now, those 4 things combine very well and have driven the financial growth we have seen. So to the stakeholder outside of Post Bank, Post Bank's tagline today is called Grow Prosper. But what is Grow Prosper? Grow Prosper means it comes from our purpose. Our purpose is to foster prosperity for Ugandans. In our view, the biggest hindrance for Ugandans developing or moving forward is access to affordable finance. Now, in this country, or in East Africa generally, just getting access to finance is a miracle. Generally, if we talk about the whole, now Post Bank plugs in excellently in that purpose, that for us to drive prosperity for Ugandans, we must avail affordable financial capital. Now, that also goes into financial inclusion. So, in that regard, to come back from where I started, what we've done with Post Bank the last 4 years is, where have we invested in our people to make sure that we drive service? Where have we invested in our technology, manufactured capital, the new branches you see, and in things like Wendy, which is our premium driver, the fintech side, to get financial capital to the most underserved and the underbanked, because we are part of the financial inclusion journey. Then, again, back to the people, the culture we create in how we work affects both our delivery and also how we treat each other in the company. And therefore, customers get a better product. So that's what has really changed at Post Bank.
Okay, interesting. So then in that new purpose, which is grow, prosper, and of course speaking also general in terms of the other finance professionals out there, what roles can they have in driving growth, managing risk, and navigating the change in light of the different, different purposes of the different organizations? Speaking the role of the finance profession with reference to Post Bank.
I'll tell you, when you get into the finance role, you quickly realize that change, risk, growth are very much part of your job. When a bank is growing, or when your business is growing, a lot of that the underlying piece that is growing is the performance of the company. And that's a hat a CFO wears. But at the same time, there is no growth without risk. Now, not only navigating risk, but managing that risk. So you have a big role in identifying that risk, making sure that if there are any compliance-related matters, they are covered very well. And the growth might require change. You mentioned earlier that most CFOs start out with a no, with a yes, or with a no. But you need to ask yourself, are you underinvesting as a business in the aspects that are going to make your business competitive? So the CFO sometimes must move away from championing a no from a point of financial capital to actually investing for the future. And by the way, this investment doesn't just talk about the aspects of the business. You also must invest in stakeholders, stakeholder relationships. So the CFO sometimes has to move away from simply talking about the financial stuff and talk about, are these areas of our business working, and challenging the leadership.
Okay. Interesting. I'm sure all these last 4 years or so, adding the other number of years you spent at UBA, they've not just been about executing.
No.
I'm sure there's been a lot of learning. What are some of the key lessons and key insights that you've picked as a person that you think are very important for you, and of course by extension that are also important for any other professionals out there that they should be knowing about?
I think the first learning I would refer back to my UBA days is that culture, the culture of the organization you walk into will affect your delivery or your strategic plans more than the plans themselves. I'll take an example. In UBA, when I walked in 2016, I didn't know the mandate was to turn around the bank. It had an 8-year loss-making streak. It had a very strong banking financially from its group, but the company in Uganda was struggling. And what we were struggling with was purely cultural issues. And at the time, my CEO didn't put it plainly like that, because I had that unfortunate where the CEO walks in the same month you walk in. So both of us didn't have any context. But we quickly learned that culture was actually the problem. And for the next 4 years, pretty much we spent our time working on that. I think the second learning very quickly is your people are your strength. If you don't invest in your people, so if you're the kind where your people make you insecure, you're scared they will overtake you. But remember, you came from somewhere. So if you don't invest in your people, it really will not work. Third, you must invest, and this is purely very obvious, but you must invest in understanding the strategic direction of the company. Some people do set it. Some CFOs are involved in setting it. Others, you might find your context requires from the group downwards. You must understand the why of why the company exists. Otherwise, everything you do will not help. Lastly, stakeholders are very important. your boss's stakeholders are your priority. Your boss's stakeholders are your priority. So those are my key learnings in the role.
Okay, interesting perspectives. You've had it, I think, the culture, the people, understanding the strategic direction of the business, and stakeholder management.
Yeah.
And of course, stakeholder management means you first must understand who those stakeholders are
You must understand
before you invest in managing them appropriately. Very interesting perspectives. Okay, great. Let's talk about the importance or the role of technology in the profession. I think technology has changed everything, including the way we worship and the way we do many other things.
The way we worship.
Let's look at how has technology changed the role of the finance professional.
I think first of all, technology won't stop, and it's changing the role. Let's look at the primary role of the profession itself. You're required to issue decision support to your CEO, to your board. Now, they need the environment that most companies operate in is very competitive, it's very fast. So they need decision-making information very quickly. Now, for a CFO, technology is your best ally. So educating yourself on, first of all, planning clearly, what are those things that are mundane that can be done by technology. I heard of a CFO friend of mine who talked about when he joined, it was a paper-based institution. And at Post Bank, we've made some of those changes to ensure that we take away all mundane tasks that technology can automate and take them out of the direction. Now, what does that do? It frees up your team to think. Now, secondly, you need digital insights into your data. Data today is a huge minefield. Whatever drives the numbers on the financial standpoint has behavior behind it that data can help. Now, you're bringing that into your teams and bring that into your daily work as a professional makes you more valuable to a board, makes you more valuable to a CEO, helps you to drive the company. So those are clearly huge feathers on the cap of the CFO today.
Okay, interesting. And let's talk a little bit about ESG. You know, right now everybody's talking about sustainability, ESG. The other day I was reading some report that ESG has become so important to the extent that people now start talking about even ESG fraud. People are misrepresenting their ESG footprint. How is that important? And I mean, in your day-to-day life of a CFO, how much importance do you pay to that, or how much should finance pay to, how much importance should they pay towards ESG and sustainability as a function of the business?
Okay, so let's first of all demystify what sustainability is. Every business, every organization has an impact on society. You have an impact on environment. You have an impact on the economy. Those are the three. There's one S, impact on society. Two E's, impact on the economy, impact on the environment.
Yes.
Now, those three things are what ESG comes to measure. Now, when you mentioned your concern is people are falsifying what that could be, that's part of it in the environmental space. They call it greenwashing. In the other S space, you had the Qatar World Cup where they were the guys from Qatar were being accused in the World Cup of sports washing. Now, but let's bring it back home, and why the CFO should be involved. The CFO's role is to manage value of the company. How does value of a company work? Value of a company means you deliver to your stakeholders the brand promise of the organization. So the impact on society, impact on environment, impact on the economy that the business brings is actually a primary concern for the CFO. So the role, like at Post Bank, I lead that sustainability journey for Post Bank Uganda. So the actual value that an organization delivers for its stakeholder and the value management around it comes from the CFO's suite.
Interesting. And as we come close to wrapping up, I remember a long time ago before I ran away from mathematics, they used to tell us, think of a number. And that number for some reason always had to be X. I don't know if it has now changed to W or something else. And think of a conversation that you could be having with maybe a junior finance professional out there. What are some of the key takeaways that you could tell them about, like the way how a father sits down their son and says, my son, if you want to be a great guy, this is what you should be doing. Right. And of course, that's also in light of what is happening now and what is likely to happen in the future.
The first thing I'll tell them is, firstly, if you're already a young professional, that means you've started on a journey somewhere. You have to get your professional, should I say, you've got to get your ACCA qualification nailed down. Yeah. You've got to be competent. Now, the first competence is getting your qualification in there. The second one is, don't waste your young years. And let me break that down. Your journey to the CFO seat is a combination of the technical acumen, the behavior acumen, but you also have to understand that accounting cannot exist outside of a business. Yeah. So you have to put it into your heart to learn the business in which you are. If I'm in media, today I'm in financial services, tomorrow I might be in FMCGs. Now, learning always involves a bit of humiliation. So you've got to be humble enough to be learning. The third thing is, all of us have, in a sense, mentors from a distance, close. Strive to get into a good team that can mentor you. Not all people start out in the same way, but you need to recall that what will a good team do for you, or what will a good mentor do for you? They will highlight those skill sets that you need. ACCA is very supportive. What has it done? It's broken for you the 7 capabilities of an accountant. What they really are, they are behavioral competencies that an accountant should have. That is your true north, where you're going. Now let's talk about on the workflow. When you start out on your junior, how well do you learn is really dependent on how much you're willing to serve. Okay. So learning, do as much as be extremely brutal with the tasks you're given. You've seen, Shab, I'm sure you've found CFOs who was young as 28, some as old as 58 to 68. And sometimes the difference in that journey is how fast someone was trying to learn. Now, often you see young ladies, young girls on the floor, and they're not exerting themselves at all. And for me personally, that breaks my heart, because time doesn't you never get that time back. So if I were to sit down somebody, that's what I would tell them.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm just wondering, me growing up, I'd always wanted to be a priest. And I'm not sure if I had very many other reasons, but I know the people who drove the best cars on the village were priests. So probably that must have been one of the biggest motivators. I'm just wondering, growing up, did you always want to be a finance person? How did it all start?
It's an interesting story, actually. I wanted to be a lawyer, but that was a very, should I say, it was a very early vision. I was always interested in financial stuff, but around the time I grew up, in my early primary was in Chitante Primary School. When we moved to Entebbe, I moved to Lake Victoria School. My father used to come back with many movies from his many travels, and one of the movies he brought back was a movie by Eddie Murphy, and it's called Trading Places. So Trading Places the setting is in the financial markets of New York. I watched that movie and I was hooked. And when I sat around people's receptions, they would put magazines on their tables. I used to pick up things like Newsweek. By then it was called Newsweek, Times. I never understood what the financial stuff was in there, but it was very encouraging. But as I went into secondary school, ended up in A-level, did sciences, didn't do very well particularly, but my father said to me, only continue with sciences if you're really interested in them. And I wasn't interested in them. But in my S4 vacation, my mom had spoken to me about ACCA. And really, after A-level, that's what sparked my interest. So I went into ACCA and I fell in love with it, with the accounting, and it's been that way ever since.
Oh, interesting. I can see you are a little bit of a planned kid. I mean, even your mother could speak to you about ACCA. My mother, I bet she didn't know even my ACCA, like ACCA existed. So we just went to school and came out the way we came out.
Yes.
And there's something you mentioned about learning and the importance of learning. Of course, we all have to keep learning every day. But of course, getting to learn in the profession, of course, this is also the part of your life where you eventually, you get to 30, you get married, you have children, you have family, and they also have their own different set of demands. How do you balance that, given that we all only have 24 hours in a day?
That's actually one of the most challenging parts of my life. Realistically, I have read many thought processes that say there's no such thing like work-life balance. There is such a thing like work-life balance. But I think from a personal financial professional and the others, we really have to get better at that. I have a very young household, and ironically, I have found that spending time with them brings down the pressure of the job. But at the same time, the job never stops. It's constantly running, or planning. So the work-life balance has to be very, very deliberate. Has to be very, very intentional. Otherwise, you might not last the distance. You can't finish the career, and either you don't have a family, or you don't have your health, or both of them. So that, for me, when I say it's a very challenging part, it means I'm very deliberate about how I go about it.
Okay. How do you go about it?
Okay. So firstly, I'm an avid rugby fan. So I do watch a lot of rugby. The one I wish I would get better at is spending a bit longer time with my wife, because she's also in a cutthroat career in cybersecurity. So it gets very difficult to find couple time.
Very interesting. I think if there's anything I picked from this is don't waste your young years. Please learn to get the technical competence. And I've also learned something about brutal execution. No excuses. When there's work to be done, work has to be worked. Like they always joke, So I think those are some of the key things I picked out. I think as we come to the close of this episode, I would like to thank you very much, Peter Ssenyange, for making time to come and share with us some of the knowledge you've gained over the last years. And I must say, probably now I've done one paper in ACCA listening to you. I would like to thank Deloitte Uganda and ACCA for bringing us this show, and of course for putting in a lot in supporting the profession, running the CFO Awards for the last 8 years, and I'm sure it's going to be running for the very many number of years to come. And also, of course, I would like to thank our partners in the CFO Awards, and that's, of course, MTN Uganda, we have Uganda Airlines, Bank of Uganda, NCBA Bank, of course, CEO East Africa Magazine, Osera Technologies, and the Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation. And for this and more learning, please do follow us, CEO East Africa Magazine, on all the social channels, so we can keep on bringing these nuggets to you and bettering the finance profession, and as we get you onto your journey of financial leadership. I thank you very much. See you next time.
CFO Playbook by CEO East Africa Magazine in association with FCCA Uganda and Deloitte, with support from MTN Uganda, Uganda Airlines, NCBA Bank, Bank of Uganda, Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation, NPS TV, and Osera Technologies.